Welcome back to part 2 of my build series for my first custom drone, the Armattan Marmotte frame, and a bunch of other components that I picked individually based on a number of different reviews and YouTube videos that I watched. Now, what I've done here is I've laid out all the pieces and parts for the frame. I've sped this thing up about 10 times because I actually spent about 2 hours doing this thing today. The first thing I did was I just followed the instructions on the frame and assembled the camera housing, which is made out of titanium and beautiful, beautiful pieces and parts. Everything fits together nicely, and that's the camera housing right there. On top of the camera housing, there's a mount for a HD camera, like a GoPro or something else, and you can strap it down there. One of the nice things is the whole entire front housing rotates up and down and moves the both the FPV camera and the HD camera at the same time. Now the next thing the instructions said to do was to build the mount for the pigtail for the antenna, and since they wanted to keep all the metal parts away from the carbon fiber, there's a rubber grommet that you have to install in there, and that was a tricky little thing to get in. The actual nut that I put on the outside is just temporary because you want to screw the antenna in there pretty tight, and it lets it float around in the rubber and move around. So that nut on there will go when I finally install the antenna. But there's the finished piece that goes on the back of the drone, and it's a pretty solid mount, and I'm thinking about maybe one of those little stubby antennas for that. That's the top plate, and in the back of the top plate is a little rubber part that screws in, and it's designed just to basically hold the antenna. And that's what it looks like when it's installed on the back. Of course, I put it in upside down, and the top plate wouldn't fit on, so I had to turn it around and put it in the right way. Now I'm putting the mounts for the camera mount that bolts to the frame, and also the two pieces in the rear that held the antenna mount. Now the camera mount screws in with 3 different screws, and it actually rotates. You loosen, there's 3 screws on each side right there, and it'll rotate up and down, allow you to change the camera angle. Next step, I thought before I put the motors on and had to deal with the motor wires flopping all over the place, I would actually get all the electronics installed. Now I'm using the Holybro Kakute F7 processor flight stack, and also the Atlatl video transmitter board that's a matching piece for this stack, but this is a very narrow, very thin quad from top to bottom, and there really wasn't room in a stack to put all 3 units, one on top of the other. So I decided that I probably have to mount the VTX in front. Now the nice thing is there's tons of mounting holes all over the bottom plate of this frame, and right here I'm trying to figure out which is the best place and the best way to mount the VTX transmitter. Some of the things, since I'm new to FPV, I went ahead and spent about $50 on Amazon and just bought myself assortments of all different size standoffs and all different size screws, and it's a good thing because I've already found a need for them. So there's the video transmitter installed in the front, and turns out I had to remove that antenna to get that in. So for the third time, I had to remove and then reinstall the antenna mount on the front of the frame. But once that thing is all bolted in there, it's really nice, because that's probably the component on the quad that generates the most heat, and it's sitting out there all by itself in the open in the breeze, and it ought to run pretty cool. And the little pigtail just fit very nicely there, very clean, and that's what the components are going to look like when they're all installed. The power lead comes out the side. Now I'm fitting on the top plate just to make sure that everything fits. And like I say, this took me about 2 hours all told to do this much. And the finished product is the frame and the electronics all ready for the motors, which will be the next step. And that's when we start soldering things and wiring things. So that'll about do it for this particular section of the build. So far, I'm really pleased with it, and the components look good. It's really solid, and I think it's going to be a great flying quad. But we'll see. We'll see.